It started like any other day. Warm plates, low voices, the soft clink of forks on porcelain. Riverton Bay was quiet that afternoon. Too quiet. Inside Crossing Point Grill, the lunch crowd was thick. Office workers, retirees, families stealing a quick meal before heading back to life. No one was in a hurry. No one felt afraid. Then, suddenly, everything exploded. A pickup truck slammed through the front wall. Glass burst inward like a storm. Tables flipped. Bodies flew. For a heartbeat, nobody screamed. People stared, frozen, confused. Someone whispered, "It was an accident." They were wrong. The engine died. Silence followed. Then the driver stepped out. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicking. He lifted his arm, and the gun appeared. Paused. The first shot echoed like thunder. Then another. Then another. Panic erupted. Chairs scraped. People dropped to the floor. Some prayed. Some ran. Some couldn't move at all. In less than 30 seconds, Crossing Point Grill became a trap. Under tables, strangers clutched each other. Hands shook. Breath caught in throats. The gunman moved slowly, almost calmly. Each step felt deliberate. Each shot, intentional. Outside, traffic passed by. No sirens yet. No warnings. Inside, chaos ruled. A woman crawled across broken glass. A man shielded his wife with his body. Someone whispered a name, Obera and Obe. No one knew why this was happening. Only that it was happening, and it wasn't stopping. Pause. 12 minutes. That's all it would take. 12 minutes to shatter a town. 12 minutes to rewrite dozens of lives. 12 minutes to make Riverton Bay a name no one would forget. But right now, no one knew that yet. They only knew one thing. If they were seen, they would die, and the footsteps were getting closer. Before the glass shattered, before the screams, he was just another face. The gunman's name was Evan Cole. 36 years old. Tall. Thin. Quiet. In a way that made people uneasy, but not alarmed. He lived alone on the edge of Riverton Bay, a rented trailer near the Marsh Road. No photos on the walls, no visitors, no noise. Neighbors barely knew him. Some said he stared too long. Others said he muttered to himself. Most said nothing at all. Evan drifted between jobs. Warehouse work, night shifts, short-term contracts. Nothing ever stuck. He felt wronged by coworkers, by women, by the world. He wrote things down, angry thoughts, sharp words, pages no one ever read. On the morning of the attack, Evan followed a routine. He woke early, ate nothing, drove his truck slowly through town. He stopped at a convenience store, bought snacks, paid in exact change. The clerk remembered his eyes. Empty. Focused. Almost relieved an hour later. He parked near Crossing Point Grill. He went inside. Sat alone. Watched people eat. Families laughing. Couples sharing fries. Old friends catching up. No one noticed him leave. No one noticed the gun case in his truck. Pause. Inside the restaurant. Life went on. At a corner table sat Daniel Moore, a local pastor, across from him. His friend, Dr. Alex Warren, a small-town vet. They joked quietly, talked about aging, about faith, about how fast life passes. Nearby, Lena Cruz stood by the drink station. She'd almost skipped lunch that day. Almost. Almost. Across the room, a group of city employees celebrated a birthday. Smiles. Phone. Photos. Near the front window, an elderly couple shared soup. Slowly. Carefully. None of them knew. This was their last normal moment. Outside. Evan started the engine. He tightened his grip on the wheel. No speech, no note, no warning, just a single thought repeating in his head. They deserve to see how it feels. As the truck rolled forward, the glass wall stood between calm and catastrophe. The truck lunged forward. Metals screamed. Glass exploded inward, like a storm of knives. Tables flipped. Chairs flew. Bodies hit the floor. For half a second, no one understood. People thought it was an accident, a medical emergency, a drunk driver. Anything but this. Then Evan Cole stepped out. Slow, deliberate. He raised the handgun and fired. Sound. Gunshot. Echo. A man near the door fell instantly. Someone screamed, then another shot. Chaos flooded the room. People dropped flat, hands over heads. Prayers whispered through tears. Daniel Moore froze, his ears rang. His chest felt hollow. Across from him, Dr. Alex Warren slid under the table. Heart pounding, breath trapped in his throat. Evan moved with purpose, not rushed, not shaking. He fired again and again. A woman near the window tried to stand. The shot caught her mid-step. She collapsed without a sound. Lena Cruz crawled behind the drink counter. Glass cut her palms. She didn't feel it. She could only hear the gun. Pop. 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 Each shot closer. Across the room, the birthday table overturned. Gift bags spilled. Cake smashed on the floor. One man dragged another by the collar, leaving a red streak behind them. Evan walked deeper into the restaurant, stepping over bodies, ignoring cries. His face stayed calm, almost blank. Someone begged him to stop. He didn't respond. He fired again. A couple near the wall clutched each other, eyes shut tight. The bullet tore through the table, with splintered inches from their faces. Paus. Paus. Daniel felt someone shaking beside him. A young man, barely breathing. Blood soaked his shirt. Daniel pressed his hand down, trying to stop it. "Stay with me," he whispered. His voice barely worked. Another gunshot. Closer now. Evan's boots stopped near their table. Daniel stopped breathing. The gun tilted downward, a pose. Then sound. Click, empty chamber. Evan cursed under his breath. The sound saved them. He stepped away to reload. Daniel didn't wait. He pulled the wounded man tighter under the table, both of them shaking. Across the room, someone made a break for the back exit. The gun roared again. They didn't make it. Pause time lost meaning. Seconds stretched forever. Every breath felt loud. Every movement felt fatal. And Evan kept moving, table to table. Evan Cole reloaded. The click was sharp. Final. People felt it before they understood it. He was not done. He moved toward the center of the room. Slow steps. Measured breaths. Like this was planned. Pause near the serving counter. An older man lay flat on the floor. Marcus Haley, a retired engineer. Hands shaking but eyes open. Beside him, his wife clutched his arm. Her lips moved. Silent prayers. Evan spotted them. The gun lifted. Marcus pulled her closer. Covered her head. The shot cracked the air. Marcus didn't move again. His wife didn't scream. She just held him tighter. Pause across the room. Lena Cruz watched it happen. Her stomach turned. Her legs wanted to run, but wouldn't. She crawled instead, dragging herself behind a tip table. Her breath came fast, too loud. She covered her mouth. Sound. Footsteps. Close. Evan passed her table, close enough that she saw his hands. Steady. No shaking. That scared her more than the gun. Pause. Daniel Moore felt it too. This wasn't rage. This wasn't panic. This was focus. Near him, the wounded young man stopped moving. Daniel pressed harder. Too late. His hand slipped. Red everywhere. Daniel closed his eyes. Not to hide, but to remember a face. A sudden crash came from the back of the restaurant. Sound. Window shattering. Someone had thrown a chair. Glass burst outward. Fresh air rushed in. Light. Hope. Evan snapped his head toward the sound. Distracted. Just for a second. That second mattered. People moved. A woman grabbed her child and ran. 2 men crawled toward the opening. One slipped. Got back up. Kept going. Paulina saw her chance. She ran, bare feet on glass. Pain exploded up her legs. She didn't stop. Behind her sound. Gunshot. The bullet hit the wall. Too slow. She dove through the window, rolled hard onto the pavement outside. Alive. Deep breath. Inside. The gunfire continued. Daniel didn't move. Not yet. Evan turned back into the room, angrier now. Shouting. Words didn't matter. Only the gun did. He fired again, and again. People screamed. Others went silent. Pause then. Sirens. Faint at first. Growing louder. Evan heard them. Everyone did. The sound changed the air. Changed everything. Evan backed toward the center aisle, breathing harder now. Rushing. Reloading again. Outside. Voices shouted. Commands. Heavy footsteps. The nightmare was cracking. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The noise hit Evan Cole like a wave. His head snapped up eyes wide. Now not come anymore. Fear had finally reached him. Paws outside the shattered windows. Red and blue lights flashed. Shadows moved fast. Police voices cut through the chaos. Get down. Drop the weapon. Evan didn't listen. He backed toward the center of the room. Breathing hard. Hands fumbling. He tried to reload again. Metal clinked against metal. Wrong magazine. Wrong gun. His hands shook for the first time. Daniel Moore saw it. The hesitation. The crack in control. He stayed still. Barely breathing. One wrong move. And it would be over. Sound. Boots on glass. An officer climbed through the broken window. Gun raised. Another followed. They moved slow. Careful. Too many bodies. Too many chances for mistakes. Evan spun toward them. Gunna. A shot rang out. Sound. Gunshot. The bullet shattered a plate behind the officers. They fired back. One round hit Evan's arm. He screamed. A raw sound. Not anger. Pain. He staggered. Dropped one weapon. It slid across the floor, clattering to a stop near an overturned chair. Pause! People screamed again. Fresh. Panic. Evan stumbled backward. Blood soaked his sleeve. His breathing turned wild. Fast. Broken. He looked around, like he was waking up, and realizing where he was, what he had done. Long pause. Sirens wailed outside. More officers rushed in, shouting, surrounding him. There was nowhere left to go. Evan raised the remaining gun, not at the police, at himself. Daniel sa Italiano. So did the officers. Someone yelled, "No. Drop it." Too late. Sound. Single gunshot. Silence followed. Heavy. Unnatural. Evan collapsed to the floor. Still. The nightmare ended in that instant. Pause for a moment. No one moved. Then, Shoot her down. Scene secure. Officers rushed forward. Weapons lowered. Hands shaking. Deep breath survivors began to rise. Slowly. Carefully. Some cried. Some screamed. Some just stared. Frozen, Daniel finally let himself breathe. He rolled onto his side. The room spun. He was alive. He didn't understand how. Pause outside. Medics ran in. Stretchers. Gloves. Blood everywhere. They checked pulses. Called out times. Some answers came too late. Softly, the restaurant was quiet now, but it would never feel quiet again. Not to anyone who survived. The silence didn't last long. It broke with shouting. Orders. Footsteps running through glass and blood. Pause. Check everyone. Who's breathing? We need stretchers. Now, medics flooded the room. Red gloves. Wide eyes, faces tight with shock. They moved fast. But careful, everybody mattered. Every second mattered. Pause. Daniel Moore lay on his side. Someone knelt beside him. A flashlight swept over his face. Sir, can you hear me? Daniel hooted barely. His throat burned. His hand shook. He whispered, I'm here. The medic squeezed his shoulder. You're safe. Now those words didn't feel real. Not yet. Pause across the room. Survivors began to realize the truth. Some tables never moved. Some people never stood up. Cries turned into sobs. Sobs turned into screams. A woman clutched her chest, rocking. Repeating one name. Aubert and Aubert. Softly nearby, an older man sat frozen, staring at nothing. Blood wasn't his, but it covered him anyway. Pause. Medics checked pulses. Called times. One after another. Some shook their heads. Others rushed stretchers forward. Hope and loss. Side by side. Long pause. Outside, the parking lot filled. Police cars. Ambulances. Fire trucks. Lights flashing against the walls. Crowds forming. Held back by tape. People shouting names, begging for answers. Pause. Inside, Daniel was lifted onto a stretcher. The ceiling lights passed above him. Bright. Blinding. He turned his head. Saw a shoe on the floor. Just one. No owner in sight. His chest tightened. Deep breath. He was carried through the broken window. Fresh air hit his face. Cold. Sharp. Real. He gasped. Not from pain. From shock. Pause. Medics loaded him into an ambulance. Doors slammed. The engine roared. As it pulled away, Daniel looked back. The buildings stood there, quiet now. Ordinary. Like nothing had happened. That hurt the most. Softly, because everything had happened. Everything. Pause. Back inside. Responders kept working. They didn't stop. They couldn't. Families would soon arrive. Questions would come. Answers wouldn't be enough. Long pause. This was no longer a crime scene. It was a graveyard of moments, of lunches never finished, of lives split in two before and after. The hardest part came next. The names. Pause. Inside a temporary command center. Officers stood over clipboards. Phones rang nonstop. One by one, they started dialing. A knock echoed through quiet houses. Living rooms. Front porches. Dinner tables still set. Softly, ma'am. I'm so sorry. Those words shattered everything. Pause. Across the city. Families collapsed. Some Massacre. Some went silent. Some refused to believe it. Not him. Not her. Not today. Pause. At the hospital. Hallways filled fast. People paced, prayed, held hands too tight. Doctors moved room to room, faces serious, voices low. Pause. Daniel Moore's sister arrived running, her hair still wet from the shower. She saw him on a gurney, alive. She covered her mouth. Relief broke her knees. Softly, you're here. You're here. Daniel tried to smile. He couldn't. Paused down the hall. Another family waited. Then waited longer. No doctor came. They already knew. Long pause by nightfall. The count was clear. Too clear. Too heavy. The numbers spread fast. Whispered first, then spoken out loud. A place known for lunch specials was now known for death. Pause. News vans lined the street. Cameras pointed at broken glass. Microphones waited. Reporters spoke in careful tones. This is a developing story. Pause, but for the families. The story was already over. Softly birthdays. That would never come. Anniversaries erased. Empty chairs. Pause at a nearby church. Doors opened. Lights stayed on. People gathered without planning to. Strangers hugged. Candles flickered. Names were written on slips of paper. Wreath. Allo. Each one felt like a punch. Long pause. A pastor stepped forward. His voice cracked. There are no words for this. He was right. Pause. Outside. The town stood still. No traffic. No laughter. Just shock and questions. Why here? Why them? Why now? Pause, but there were no answers. Only grief, and the city forever changed. While the city mourned, investigators worked. No sleep, no pause. Just questions. Pause. Who was the man who did this, and why? Pause. They started with the basics. A name, a past, an address. Paul's name was Evan Karzan, 36 years old. Lived alone. No wife. No children. No close friends. Pause. His small rental house sat at the edge of town. Overgrown grass. Blinds always closed. Neighbors barely knew him. Softly he kept to himself. He was angry. He yelled a lot. Pause. Police searched the house. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Pause. Walls covered in notes. Scraps of paper. Angry sentences. Messy handwriting. Pause. Words about betrayal. About being ignored. About feeling mocked. Softly, they all laughed at me. They deserved to feel it too. Pause. Officers exchanged looks. This wasn't random. This was building for a long time. Pause. They found notebooks. Dates circled. Places listed. The cafe's name appeared more than once. Underlined. Hard. Long pause. Investigators spoke to former co-workers. Former landlords. Anyone who crossed his path. Pause. The story stayed the same. He lost jobs often. Arguments. Explosions of anger. Blamed everyone else. Never himself. Pause. A former supervisor said something chilling. Softly he used to say one day they'd all see. Pause. They checked his medical history. No formal diagnosis, but signs were there. Isolation. Paranoia. Fixation. Pause. And then. The most disturbing detail. Pause. Weeks before the attack. He had visited the cafe. Sat alone. Watched people eat. Families laughing. Friends talking. Softly he stayed almost an hour. Nothing. Left without finishing his meal. Pause. To investigators. That felt like rehearsal. Long pause. The picture became clear. Not madness in a moment, but rage. Carefully carried. Pause. And now the city knew. The danger didn't come from outside. It lived among them. Quiet. Waiting. The gunfire stopped, but the fear didn't. paused for those who survived. The nightmare was just beginning. Pause. They crawled out from under tables, from behind counters, from places meant for hiding, not living. Softly, some were shaking, some were bleeding, some couldn't speak at all. Pause outside. The air felt unreal. Too quiet. Too normal. Pause. Sirens screamed in the distance. Red lights painted the walls. Strangers hugged each other. No names. No questions. Just relief. Pause. Inside ambulances. People stared at the ceiling, trying to understand why they were alive. Pause. Doctors worked fast. Hands moving. Voices sharp. Blood everywhere. Pause. One survivor kept asking the same thing. Softly, is my sister okay? No one answered. Pause. Another survivor refused treatment. Pointed back toward the building. With urgency, there are still people inside. Pause. Some survivors didn't realize they were injured. Shock hid the pain. Adrenaline lied to them. Pause. Later, when the silence returned. That is, say, when it hit. Long pause nights became impossible. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it brought screams. Pause. Loud sounds felt like gunshots. Crowded rooms felt dangerous. Lunch never felt normal again. Pause. One woman said something haunting. Softly, I still smell it. Every time I close my eyes. Pause. Another survivor couldn't step into a cafe, not even years later, not even on say. Pause. Survivors carried invisible wounds. Guilt. Fear. Anger. Pause. Why them? Why not me? Pause. They replayed moments. Choices. Seconds. What if I stood up? What if primera ra? N.A. What if I screamed? Long pause, and through it all, one truth remained. They survived. But part of them stayed behind on that floor. In that room. At that table. Pause and healing was going to take a lifetime. The building was silent now. Too silent. Pause. Police tape propped the entrance. Yellow lines against broken glass. Pause. Inside. Investigators stepped carefully. Every step mattered. Pause. Shell casings. Overturned chairs. Blood on the floor. Softly it told a story no one wanted to hear. Pause. Outside. Families gathered. Phones clutched tight. Eyes locked on the doors. Pause. Names were called. Some people answered. Some names never did. Long pause. A father fell to his knees. A woman screamed once, then went quiet. Pause. Officials tried to explain, but there were no words. Not for this. Pause. Reporters arrived fast. Cameras rolled. Questions flew. With tension, how could this happen? Was it preventable? Who failed? Pause. Authorities said the shooter acted alone. No warning signs. No clear motive. Pause. That answer didn't sit right. Not with the survivors. Not with the families. Pause. People wanted meaning. A reason. Anything. Pause. Inside the evidence room. The weapon lay on the table. Cold. Silent. Pause. A single object. So much damage. Pause. Detectives retraced steps, minute by minute. Second by second. Pause. They mapped the path, the turns. The pauses, softly. The moments where lives ended. Pause. Meanwhile, the city changed overnight. Restaurants sat empty, doors locked early. People looked over their shoulders. Pause. Something fragile had shattered. Trust. Safety. Routine. Pause. One survivor said it best. Quiet. We didn't just lose people. We lost normal. Pause. Community meetings filled fast. Voices rose. Arguments followed. With emotion, how do we stop this? Pause. There were no easy answers. Just fear and grief. Anger. Pause. But something else was growing too. Resolve. Pause, a determination to make sure this never happened again. Pause, because the silence left behind was louder than any gunshot. Investigators didn't start with the crime. They started with the man. Pause, his name wasn't important anymore. Not here. Not now. Pause, what mattered was why. Softly, what turns a person into this? Pause, they searched his past. Apartment records. Old jobs. Medical notes. Pause, what they found was a life. Quiet on the surface, but boiling underneath. Pause, Nevas described him as readily Ismilith rarely spoke. Pause, when he did speak, it came out sharp, angry, with tension like the world owed him something. Pause, he moved often. Couldn't hold a job. Blamed others every time. Pause, supervisors said he felt wronged. Always. Pause, friends. None close. Family. Barely present. Pause, he spent long hours alone. Writing. Watching. Thinking. Pause, thoughts turned dark. Then darker. Pause. Pause. Investigators found notebooks, pages filled with blame, rage, bitterness. Pause, whole groups of people blamed for his failures, for his loneliness, softly for his pain. Pause, there were warning signs. Missed ones, ignored ones. Pause, complaints from neighbors, arguments with strangers, moments where someone could have stepped in. Pause, but no one did. Pause, mental health records showed struggle, depression, paranoia, unstable thoughts. Pause, yet no intervention, no follow-up, no safety net. Pause, the weapons, purchased legally, no red flags, no barriers. Pause, that fact alone ignited another fire. Pause, debates started overnight, on television, at dinner tables, in city halls. Pause, people asked hard questions. With emotion, should this have been allowed? Could this have been stopped? Pause. Pause. Experts disagreed. Politicians argued. Families listened. Broken. Pause, meanwhile. Survivors were reliving everything. Every sound. Every smell. Every second. Pause, sleep didn't come easy. When it did, nightmares followed. Pause, one survivor said. Quiet? He didn't just take lives. He followed us home. Pause, as investigators closed the file. They reached a grim conclusion. Softly, there was no single cause. Pause. Just a storm. Ignored warnings, untreated illness, easy access, and timing. Pause, a perfect storm. Pause, and at the center of it, people who never had a choice. The cameras eventually left. The sirens faded. Pause, but for the survivors, nothing went back to normal. Pause, hospitals became home. White walls. Beeping machines. Pause, doctors talked about healing. Bones. Skin. Blood. Pause, but no one knew how to heal this. Softly the memories. Pause, some survivors woke up screaming. Others, cold and sleep at all. Pause. Every loud sound felt dangerous. Every public place felt wrong. Pause, one man said he memorized exits. Everywhere he went. Pause, a woman stopped sitting with her back to doors. Forever. Pause, families gathered in waiting rooms, holding hands, holding breath. Pause, some waited for good news. Others waited for permission to grieve. Long pause, funerals followed. Tu, mani, to close together. Pause, rows of chairs, photos on easels. Lives reduced to memories. Pause, a mother whispered. Softly they went out for lunch. Pause, that sentence broke people. Pause, counselors arrived. Support groups formed. Strangers became lifelines. Pause, they talked. They cried. They? He listened. Pause and slowly. Something shifted. Pause. Pain turned into purpose. Pause. Some survivors spoke publicly, voices shaking, hands trembling. Pause. They told their stories. Not for attention. For change. Pause. They asked lawmakers to listen. Really listen. Pause. They wanted safer spaces, better warning systems, real mental health support. Pause. Not everyone agreed. Arguments grew loud. Pause, but the survivors didn't stop. With quiet strength, they had already faced the worst. Pause. One survivor said it plainly, softly. If we stayed silent, it happens again. Pause. So they kept speaking, kept showing up, kept remembering. Pause. Healing wasn't fast. It wasn't clean. Pause. But it was happening. Step by step. Breath by breath. Pause. Because surviving was only the beginning. The story didn't stay local. Not for long. Pause headlines spread fast. Across status, across the country. Pause. An ordinary place. An ordinary day turned into a warning. Pause. News anchors struggled for words. Softly, how could this happen? Paused. People watched in silence. At home. At work. In break rooms. Pause. Some saw fear. Others saw themselves. Pause. Lawmakers took notice. Emergency meetings were called. Pause. Experts debated causes. Mental health. Access. Warning signs. Pause. But survivors weren't interested in debate. They wanted action. Pause. One survivor stood before cameras. Hands shaking. Voice steady. With emotion, this didn't come from nowhere. Pause. Another spoke about choices. Seconds. Regret. Pause. They talked about what they didn't have. Protection. Options. A chance. Pause. Letters poured into offices. Thousands of them. Pause. Some demanded change. Others demanded silence. Pause. The country split. Arguments grew louder. Pause. But something had shifted. The conversation was different now. Pause. This wasn't theory. It was blood. It was loss. Pause. Community groups formed. Town halls filled. People stood up to speak. Pause. Many had never spoken publicly before. Pause. But fear gave way to courage. Pause. A survivor said something chilling. Softly, if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. Pause. That sentence echoed. In newsrooms, in classrooms, in homes. Pause. Policy didn't change overnight. Nothing ever does. Pause. But seeds were planted. Pause. Seeds born from tragedy. Pause. And while some wanted to move on, others refused to forget. Pause. Because forgetting felt dangerous. Time moved on. But it didn't heal everything. Pause. Years passed. Calendars changed. Lives moved forward, or tried to. Pause. For many survivors, the pain aged with them. Quietly. Relentlessly. Pause. Anniversaries were the hardest. The dates circled in red. Every year. Pause. Some people avoided the news. Others watched it on repeat. Pause. One survivor said, softly, my body remembers before my mind does. Pause. Crowded places felt dangerous. Restaurants. Movie theaters. Even churches. Pause. A slammed door could steal their breath. A dropped plate could freeze them in place. Pause. Some marriages didn't survive the aftermath. Trauma crept in. Silence grew. Pause. Children noticed the change. Parents who jumped at sounds. Who checked exits. Who never fully relaxed. Pause. Therapy helped some. Medication helped others. Pause. But for many, the memories stayed sharp. Pause. Survivors formed quiet routines. Same seat. Same path. Same time. Pause. Control felt like safety. Pause. The city tried to honor the lost. Memorials were built. Names were etched in stone. Pause. People gathered. Hands held. Tears fell. Pause. But grief doesn't end at ceremonies. Pause. It shows up in grocery aisles. In sudden silence. In empty chairs. Pause. One survivor shared a truth few understood. Softly, you don't move on. You learn to carry it. Pause and carry it. They did. Into new jobs. New homes. New lives. Some found strength they never knew they had. Others simply endured. Pause. But every survivor shared one bond. Pause. They were there. They remembered. Pause, and the past was never really past. Years later, people still ask the same question. Pause. Did anything change? Pause. Some laws shifted. Some policies adjusted. Pause. But fear didn't disappear. Pause. It learned new places. New sounds. New faces. Pause. For survivors, the echoes never stopped. They show up without warning. Softly, a slammed door. A popping balloon. A tray dropping to the floor. Pause. The body reacts first. Heart racing. Hands shaking. Pause. Logic comes later. Pause. Families of those lost learned a different language. The language of absence. Pause. Birthdays with empty seats. Holidays, missing laughter. Pause. Photos that never age. Pause. One family member said, softly, we don't count years anymore. We count before and after. Pause. The place itself changed. New paint. New signs. New name. Pause. But memory doesn't follow renovations. Pause. People still slow down when they pass. Some won't look. Some always do. Pause. Survivors continue to speak. Not because they want to relive it, but because silence feels dangerous. Pause. They tell their stories to strangers, to lawmakers, to anyone who will listen. Pause. Not for pity. For awareness. Pause. Because tragedy doesn't announce itself. It arrives uninvited. Pause. And when it does, seconds matter. Choices matter. People matter. Pause. One survivor left us with this. Quiet with weight. We can't control everything, but we can refuse to forget. Pause. Remembering is uncomfortable. It should be. Pause. Because comfort didn't save lives that day. Pause. Attention might. Preparation might. Compassion might. Pause. This story isn't just about violence. Pause. It's about the people who lived, the people who didn't. Pause, and the responsibility left behind. Long pause, if you were moved by this story. Take a moment, think. Talk. Listen. Pause. Pause because Massacre is how we honor them.